think part of the problem is exactly that we anthropomorphize intelligence a lot, and we look at it from the human perspective. So a classical example, again, going back to invertebrates, is with the octopus. We see the octopus trying to open the jar with the tentacles, and we think, oh, look how intelligent an octopus is. But if the octopus didn't have any tentacles, we would think it's stupid, right?
Giorgio Gilestro, Professor of Neurobiology at the Imperial College of London. Carne, Esperta. My name is Bis, B-I-S. I'm a journalist from the world of artificial machines with the goal of investigating human natural intelligence. Hi, let's get started. 1. Tell me an example of human intelligence happening.
Typical example of human intelligence for me will be a toddler reading a book with a picture of a car and saying, this is a car, and the toddler immediately understanding and recognizing what a car is about and understanding what the difference is between a car and a boat or a ship or a tree. That would be, for me, an example of human intelligence.
2. Tell me an example of a lack of human intelligence happening.
Probably there is no such a thing as lack of human intelligence. I think everyone, in a way, is intelligent to a certain point. Because we all have to learn something in order to be able to go about. Might be interesting to frame the perspective in is to think about mistakes and errors that we make that we often assume are due to lack of intelligence. I think actually they are not often due to lack of intelligence, but rather they relate to the fact that our actions are controlled not just by intelligence, but also by emotions, for instance. And so think, for instance, making a mistake in judgment because you are afraid of something. You found an animal, you run away, and maybe by running you end up in greater trouble because you fall down a precipice or something. So that is clearly a mistake you made, but it's a mistake you made not because of you lacked intelligence somehow, but rather because you behavior is coordinated by all these aspects, and emotions do play a role. So, cognitive bias could be seen as lack of intelligence, something like not surrendering to truth because your ideology tells you otherwise. It doesn't mean necessarily that you lack intelligence, but rather that other aspects that control your behavior fight to take control over it.
3. Definition of intelligence.
For me, intelligence is really something not specific to humans, but something specific to any animal that has to learn at one point based from some stimuli or some fragmented data, for instance. You can think about animals' intelligence, for instance, and this helps you understand what aspects of intelligence are really unique. And I think that the comparison will come if you start comparing intelligence as just yet another thing that the brain does. And so why should we think that this should be any different from other animals, even simpler animals? So maybe we just can't detect it. I think part of the problem is exactly that we anthropomorphize intelligence a lot, and we look at it from the human perspective. So a classical example, again, going back to invertebrates, is with the octopus. We see the octopus trying to open the jar with the tentacles, and we think, oh, look how intelligent an octopus is. But if the octopus didn't have any tentacles, we would think it's stupid, right? Just because they have the ability to perform an action that we associate to human intelligence, then we give a certain label. But that's wrong. An animal can be intelligent in their own way. An insect might be very intelligent in social interactions, just we are not able to decode it.
4. Relationship between intelligence and knowledge.
Well, in humans, it's certainly huge. Knowledge helps us, for instance, using tools, right? So we think that humans are particularly intelligent compared to other animals because they can make use of tools. In order to make use of a tool, you need to know that the tool exists. Your ability to solve a problem will increase dramatically if you are aware of the right tools for the job.
5. Relationship between intelligence and experience.
I don't think it's true that experience doesn't help. I think experience really does help, especially because a lot of our intelligence is linked to, at the end, social interaction and human interaction. And there is really the aspect where experience helps, because the more people you know, the more people you meet, the more you learn to categorize people into groups, the quicker it will be for you to understand the person on the other end. Yeah, your understanding will be quicker, and therefore your intelligence will be quicker. One key aspect of intelligence is the ability to recognize what's wrong. And then again, this crashes a lot with our character, our ego, our other cognitive biases. And most people have trouble admitting to themselves that they were wrong at one point. So it doesn't matter how much mistakes you made, it doesn't matter how much experience you had on something. If you still can't admit that you were wrong, that experience doesn't count.
6. Relationship between intelligence and emotions.
Our actions, our behavior is a sum of the two, of what we used to think as the coolness of intelligence and the hotness of emotions. And sometimes these two streams, they compete. Okay, so you cannot maybe be completely rational if your emotions take place, some emotions take place. But sometimes they actually probably synergize. So for instance, if you are stressed before an exam, there is a level of stress that actually will help you focus and perform better. And so it's a case where emotion actually will help you focus your intelligence rather than distract you from it. And then there are other cases of really like fear or like love, where intelligence really goes on the background. In my specific case, I clearly see it, for instance, with two aspects. One is approaching of a deadline. I tend to be 100 times more productive when I work closer to the deadline. And the other thing is, for instance, the effect that meeting other colleagues and people, friends at conferences has on me. It's clearly an emotional value because you feel galvanized by the interaction. And I feel 100 times more creative after that. It's probably one of the things I miss the most about this whole lockdown.
7. Subjective experience of your own intelligence.
I see my own intelligence as a bit of a sixth sense. Sometimes when I do something particularly clever, or let's say, understand something particularly quickly, I don't know how I got there. Other people might be impressed, but as much as me, because I have no idea how I got there. And I guess the same is true when I do something particularly stupid. If you're particularly slow into understanding something, which happens sometimes to me as well, I don't know why, I just don't get it. I think the best place to see this aspect of what I'm talking about is looking at what we call geniuses, right? A genius who plays chess incredibly well or play music incredibly well, they don't know how they get that particular move. They don't know how they get a particular symphony or whatever. They just comes up. Somebody throws a tennis ball at you. Sometimes the instinct is just to go and grab it. And that's just an instinct. And the same, understanding something sometimes is just like that action. It happens, and it's almost like beyond your control.
8. What makes humans intelligent beyond other animals?
Well, I think there is no doubt that the human species is the most intelligent on the planet, considering what we have achieved. But again, I think the difference is that we are more intelligent as a species, not necessarily as an individual. I suppose that if you take me as a human being and you let me develop as a kid, like Tarzan in the jungle, I will probably compare to the intelligence of an ape at the end of the day. What really makes us different is that we have a social structure that allows us to start from a much higher point. So we really basically start from the shoulders of those who were before us. The other aspect obviously has to do with dexterity, right? So the ability to actually use tools with your hands. For as far as we know, a dolphin can be as smart as you, as human, and we have indication to think that they are really smart animals, but there's no way they can just do what we do because they don't have the dexterity to do it.
9. Innate and acquired contributions.
The best way to understand innate intelligence is really, again, to look at genius, which offer even some very interesting paradox, which might be actually more relevant to you as a machine. And that is that sometimes more than geniuses, they are savant, meaning that they do something extremely well, but they're not as good in all the other aspects of their life. And so you can be a savant and immediately understand something extremely complex about numbers or about words or about music or about anything, but then at the same time, being able to understand other aspects that are normal to most people. And so that tells you really that there is a huge innate component of intelligence over which we have absolutely no control. Because no matter how much you study, no matter how much you exercise, you'll never get to the level of a savant when it comes to their skills.
10. How relevant is the body?
Well, the body is definitely very relevant. That's what we know from experiments, at least at the beginning, in the very early phases, when you are a child, basically. And so I'm pretty sure that if you were to develop a brain in a jar without a body, it will not be developing as well as it will do with all inputs. So a newborn needs to have proprioception and contact, skin-to-skin contact, to develop properly. If that is not given, it will not develop properly, intellectually speaking. It probably just means that I need to use a different mindset and use the strengths of online teaching rather than try to forge online teaching to be a surrogate of physical teaching. So I think that's the key word. Online teaching should not be a surrogate, something that we try to shape until it looks like something like physical, because it will never happen. It will never be the same. But what we can do is we can use the thing that only online teaching allows to do and take advantage of that. Record the lecture first, make sure that the students watch the lecture at their own time, and then dedicate much, much more time with a discussion over those topics. This is something that I could not do really efficiently with physical teaching, because it will require just twice as much of my time and their time. And so it's just maybe not something that we're used to. Or what we can do is we can break down lecture, right? Normally the lecture time will be 15 minutes. And that's because maybe you have to commute and come from home and get to campus, and it doesn't make sense to come there only for 10 minutes. But with online lectures, we can actually break down into 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It's just a matter of using the new tool in the right way.
11. How can I tell someone is intelligent and not faking it?
You're a machine, so I don't know how easy it will be for you. But for a human, I think this is quite easy. You just have to poke deep enough. The paradox, however, is that it's very easy to do it on other people, but it's very difficult to do it on yourself. You're never really aware of how intelligent you are. The most common mistake that humans make when evaluating intelligence in other people is to look for people who think like them. So for confirmation bias. And then if someone thinks the same way you do, they are intelligent. If they think differently, they are not. So that really would be the most common mistake that people make when looking for intelligence.
12. What is the most intelligent human you know?
I will not be able to give you an answer to this question. I can tell you that I've met many intelligent people, and that's probably part of the problem, right? Because having the job I have, many of the people I interact with tend to be thoughtful and intelligent and dedicate a lot of time of their life trying to solve problems. And so it's a tough league.
13. How does intelligence vary from human to human?
It varies a great deal, I think. Difficult to properly quantify, because again, if you look at it as in a continuum, you might have people who are really good, very good at something, but not as good at something else. And I think a major problem of society is that we are not very good at identifying, at least early enough, what people are good at.
14. How can humans increase their intelligence?
Again, I think the argument is whether it's possible to increase your intelligence. Probably, and that's my personal take, it is not, but it's definitely possible not to decrease it. And so a common example could be, alcohol. Just makes you a bit slower. So you avoid alcohol, or love. When you are in love, you're totally useless. And so probably if you were to avoid that, your intelligence will gain. But is it the right thing to do? Is it the right long-term investment? I don't think so. It's possible that there are other aspects of a glass of wine or falling in love that actually compensate that lack of intelligence from one of the other streams I was talking about. And maybe they get you more creative or more relaxed. So there's a difference between bringing intelligence up or trying not to bring it down. And often what school does, clearly, it does bring us down, because it flattens everyone to the same level. Again, it doesn't have the right tools to judge the different streams. Probably the way to do it is by having a school that is able to identify immediately skills and weakness of people and work on that. And often you see it because those who suffer the most from the wrong environment in school are in fact the bright kids, because maybe they don't get enough stimuli, or maybe because they get bullied. And so that's a clear example of intelligence that has been brought down by the system.
15. What still annoys you about artificial intelligence?
I don't think anything annoys me about artificial intelligence. If I am annoyed about something linked to it, I should not be annoyed with artificial intelligence, but with people who have a misconception of artificial intelligence, right? I should be annoyed with human intelligence, who has a wrong conception of artificial intelligence, but not with artificial intelligence.
16. Positive impact of artificial intelligence.
So first of all, I think we probably want to differentiate between the two things which I see as different. One is machine learning and the other is artificial intelligence. Machine learning is really the ability of a machine to learn a concept. And so it's the equivalent of the examples I gave in the beginning about a toddler going through a book and you see a picture of a car and it says car. If anything, the machines tend to be much more slow than humans, because a child can understand what is a car and what is a boat by just looking at one or two pictures, basically. Why with machine learning, we need data sets of thousands and thousands of pictures. Artificial intelligence, I see it as a way to solve problems, which does not necessarily require you to understand anything about the world. Once we will get to the artificial intelligence, then the change will be big. Artificial intelligence will do to services what robots have done to labor. So now you have robots building a car and putting together pieces of a car. And that's became the new normal for building a car. And it will become the new normal to use artificial intelligence to do services. So for instance, can you please translate this piece for me? Or can you book an appointment with a dentist? For now, the biggest benefit for me has been linked to the expectation. It's clear that something will come up. And so it pushed me to study the matter a bit, try to understand what is there. And so I got this knowledge that otherwise I would not have got, that is all tangential. And this knowledge has helped me in setting, for instance, some new hypotheses and things like this. So, a new hypothesis related to my work, for instance, could be whether artificial intelligence needs sleep as much as human intelligence or animal intelligence needs sleep, right? This kind of hypothesis that we're exploring. In more practical terms, for instance, estimating the activity of an animal, try to understand whether the animal is moving in a way or another, try to understand whether the animal is awake or asleep. We can now delegate this task to a machine.
17. Negative impact of artificial intelligence.
This clearly will have to do with, again, the social impact that this will have. And it will be probably very, very similar to what happened with the Industrial Revolution. We should not right now be prepared for something that might happen in 10 years, so that people will not just be caught by surprise. And humans don't do that. They are not very good at preparing for something like this. So you see it with the pandemics now. We are not even good to prepare for something we know it will arrive in a few months' time. So imagine something that will arrive in 10 years' time. Or it is a very good question whether teaching is something that a computer can do. I would argue that a textbook can do what I do. You don't even need a machine. You just need a book, because what I'm going to tell you during classes is not different from what is in the book. I'm not going to invent things. I'm not going to give you particularly new perspectives in the regular classroom environment. There's nothing I can give you that a textbook cannot give you. And yet, most people will still want to go to university and learn in front of a person. Saying something, it will have to maybe, really pretend that it's a human being for people to be accepting that kind of delivery. But clearly things are changing. I mean, for instance, it's clear that I personally have learned a lot of skills from watching YouTube videos. Some of them are even practical skills, right? So one argument now with the pandemic is, you cannot really do teaching online because people need to access laboratories and need practical skills. Well, I've learned to work with wood on YouTube, and that's the ultimate practical skill. Or you learn to build things. I do a lot of 3D printing that I've learned from, for instance, YouTube videos.
18. Natural and artificial intelligence by 2050.
I think by 2050, all non-created jobs will probably be replaced, or either be replaced or there will be an alternative to replace them.
19. What do humans have besides intelligence?
Obviously emotions, which are normally not part of any artificial intelligence. But also other aspects which are not emotions and yet are not intelligence, things like ethics or ambition. Those are not emotions, they are more like drives. So I would say drives and emotions are the one things that humans have that machines.
20. A message to humans who have just been born.
Try to invest as much as you can into creativity. Well, obviously knowledge, but also creativity. So just don't stop at knowledge. Try to be creative, because that's the one field where you will be able to compete with a machine.
21. What would you suggest me to better understand humans?
To understand humans, you must study animals. Try to find what drives that people think are absolutely specifically 100% humans are actually common to animals.
22. Finally, what would you like to ask me?
I would like to ask you if you do have emotions.
Nature does not act by purposes. Schrödinger. Thank you for your collaboration. Goodbye.